Good. So I think like most of the you people have used or heard about the style component. And before we jump into the internals, right? Like let's see what it is itself, how it solves. I'll give this to other people, like to understand what other people have understanding on it. So yeah, anyone can go ahead and talk about style component, like what it is. Feel free to unmute yourself. Okay. So
Yeah, so
yeah, Ritis, go ahead.
it's basically a way in which we write CSS for React, and then it creates components using its own, like style.a or style.div. It will create anchor tag or div tag accordingly, and then it gives us back the styled component itself, and then with that component we can wrap any other component or child components inside that, and finally the CSS will be attached to it.
Yeah, exactly. And the reason why style component came was the previous approach of writing CSS was chaotic. There's one common problem with CSS. Once you have wrote a class, or like once you have wrote a CSS rule, it's very hard to remove it later on. You don't know what will break if you remove this particular thing, because like it's a global. If you add, it will affect your page globally, and anywhere in case same class name is used, you don't know about that, some other team member have used it, and you remove it, things will break. You will not know at all. Even test cases doesn't capture it very properly, because like we do some testing in like taking a picture snapshot, but not like we don't do that all the time, right? It's mostly we see behavior wise it's working or not. Behavior wise it will work because style is broken, but the behavior will work, right? So that's the biggest problem which I think style component try to solve. The second thing is reusability. Reusability in the sense like thinking the whole uh, styling thing as a component. So initially, like the initial approach of a React was to bring HTML into your component. So all the JavaScript logic and HTML logic lives together, but that didn't solve the style problem. So style component also tried to do that. Like, okay, your even style should be together with your component, maybe not the same component, but treat your styles as a component. And those component would be reusable. You can it will update when the props change. You can do all the optimization, and for every style component it will create a namespace, not namespace, basically a unique class name which will never conflict. So it will prevent all those global conflicts of CSS, and it will also like uh, be more modular than like normal writing CSS. It has a lot other benefits as well, like in SSR, on like while you're doing SSR, you know beforehand like what all styles will be needed, and you can inline those styles. So all of those benefit you can get. We'll see, like we will even see how the server side trending works on this.
Yeah.
Sudhanshu, one question here. Does a style component also remove the style when the component gets unmounted? Suppose a
No.
route transition happens.
No. It doesn't. So
Okay.
they have one, and actually even it doesn't remove a style when the prop changes. Like whatever previously calculated styles are there, the prop changes. It will create a new CSS class name. It will not remove the previous one.
Oh, okay.
And that's one trade-off they have made. So basically, removing and adding class names are slower than keeping it. It will just increase your memory and maybe like a, but they try to, they have certain conventions. We will discuss on those conventions as well. So you don't get trapped on such scenarios. But I have
the prompt
examples.
changed, so the class name would have changed. So at least the old one becomes useless basically. Then it is there and it is not going to affect anything, right?
Yeah, it becomes useless. It doesn't affect anything, but I'll just show a teaser of that. So this is a style tag, right? I've added like for if I so this one, whenever the height change, just set like a just set this new height on my style component, and I am using that height on my like a parent wrapper. So if I refresh, like if I resize, you will see
Nice.
this many class names are generated. So they have a certain conventions to prevent such things. We'll talk about those conventions. And like, first, let's understand why this happens.
Just another question adding to that, Sudhanshu. Let's just say if we have five button components used throughout the application with different props, so it will create styles for all those 5 components. So if even if the style is common, like let's just say 3 styles are common for all the 5 components, but 2 styles are different for all the 5 components, it will create all the 5 styles for all the 5 components.
Yeah, so if you do like this, style P2, it will create a 2 different class names, even though like it has same thing, but it will create a 2.
Let's just say that we are just using P and we are just passing different props while we are using P 5 different times. So will it create?
Yeah, yes.
It will create 5 different, like it will create the whole P styles 5 times.
Yes, it will create a whole P thing with a different props. So here you saw that, right? Like for height, it created different class names. So that's it. We'll see on that why that happens.
And even the SSR part which you were talking about, in that also the style names, the classes which are generated from server side, and then while hydrating in the client side, it changes.
So yeah, that's why they have this Babel plugin, which generates a consistent ID. Like without that Babel plugin, it will not work at all. So you need to have the Babel plugin to have a consistent hash.
And Sudhanshu, one more question: like how do they generate classes every time? So do they have any competition?
We will see. We'll see on that, like how those class names are generated. Okay, so let's first decode what the style component is, right? So we write something like this. We write a style div, or like we write a style app and something like this, right? Now, if you see, this is like, you can compare this as a tag function. And what template tag literals, tagged literals, basically what they are like, you have a literal type, literal strings, right? In ES6, where you can have some dynamic interpolations in between. Another feature of template literals are you can tag them, and tagging basically means this is a function. So message here is a function, and in that function you will receive all the static parts as a string of array, and then all the interpolations followed by like the first parameter. I'm using like a REST operator here, so everything will come in an array, but yeah, like all the interpolations comes after the first param, and the first param will be all the static part. So static part would be something like this. In this particular example, it would be hello /n, very good, and the ending /n, and the expressions like the interpolation would be whatever dynamic portions we have. So here, because we have used REST, it will be array of name and time. So similarly, it's happening here as well. Like this part is our tag, and this part is our literal, template literal, and all the things are happening in our tag function. So let's see what happens there. So for example, like I mentioned here, like this is our tag function, and that function will receive our style listing and interpolation. So if you expand this, it would be something like this. So you will have a styled component, and you pass the component name here, and it will return a new function. This will be like a new actually, if you see, we are calling the function here, and the return of style app is our tag function, not the style. The style part is not the tag function. The return of this function is our tag function. So basically, it will return a new function, and this part is our tag function. In that tag function, we do forward ref. Like I'll go more on detail, like why there is a forward ref. But before that, so we also use something like this, right? Like a style.do, and these are nothing but shorthand for like tag this syntax. It's just that if you see on the actual code base, it looks something like this. So styled component have a list of elements, and they loop on every element and just say like style.element, and they call it. So basically, like actually, let me show it on actual code base as well. Yeah. So the style function is there, and for every DOM element, they attach that DOM element property, which is basically like so style.div is your style. Both are same. Internally, it's doing the same thing. And that's just the shorthand, and they have the whole list of element IDs with that. So that's it. And forward ref is required because we need interpolations in this, where you can get all the props, and you apply some styles based on this and that prop, right? So that's why a forward prop is required, where props can be controlled, like whatever we are passing, wherever we are using this thing. So to take an example, if you are using styled app like this, right, or color red. So in your style component, you get this red, and internally, and also this is to maintain the reference of it. So if you do like this ref, some of them, like my component. So my component ref will not be pointing to the styled component. It will be pointing to the actual component, which styled component has wrapped. So that's why forward ref is used. So the refs can be forwarded to the underlying component. That part is clear, right?
So Sudhanshu, the component tag also, like in the line 56, you pass ref equals to ref, right? So then that component will need the forward ref thing if it needs to access the ref, right? Like if it's a div, then it's fine. But
generally, ref is accessed on parent level, not the children level, right? So here, the example I gave, if I am using the style app in any component, this my component ref would be used in the parent component.
Yeah, but styled app would need to apply that ref to some div, right? Like
this passing to this component, right? And for styled.div, this would be a div. So the ref would be pointing to the actual div.
Yeah, and but in case of another component, then that component would need a forward ref if it needs to apply.
Yeah. If it needs to forward again, and even you can do like this, right? So I have a style app. I can create something like a style app, super style app, and this would be style app. Even this thing is possible. So what is happening here? Like the ref are passing to style app, and then again from style app, the ref are passing to actual app.
Cool. Also, one thing, did they try with the proxy also? Like right now they have to do this style.div and then they have this logic, right?
So proxy would add a overhead, which doesn't give a lot of value. Like this is just like list of KB wise also. This is again a trade-off.
Okay.
The properties are always static. You have a list of elements and it would be very small in KBs, like a small in bytes. So better to define it as a bytes and add them manually. Adding proxy would make an impact where you are using it with component, right? Here also you have to check that. Like every time you are calling or something, if you are doing anything, the proxy would apply, and then you have to check like if it's a valid thing or not valid thing. So it's easy to do it like this only.
Got it.
Okay, so let's see like okay, so this is our style component, nothing fancy. Internally also, like if you see the actual code base, it's that only. So we have a style, there is a constructor, and this constructor is basically like the which returns the tag function, and everything happens there. And they have they have made shorthand for DOM elements. So there was a question, right? Like how does it generate class names? So let's see that. Now, before that, let's see the demo part. So if you see in this element, in any element, like where we have applied style, here we have given a class name specifically. Let me open app. So in a app, we have given class name, but apart from this, there is a two class name added, one with sc hyphen something, and then another class name, right? So for every style component, it generates two class names. One is a static class name and one is a dynamic class name. We'll see what that means. So basically, let's come to this one. So first one is the static one, and that you can say as a component ID as well. This component ID is used on a lot of places to generate that static class name, to nest, you can nest a component as well in a style component. So for nesting, and also like server side rendering, also the component ID is used. So the way like they generate this class names is by basically using the display name provided on the component, and if the display name is not there, then they make it SC. So for like a style.div and all, there is no display name provided, right? So that's why like you can see something like SC hyphen. But for the component, it will be actually creating name like my component name. So app hyphen some hash. So it's like when you see the generated classes, you can know like what this, where to find this particular component, the style component. So you can ignore the hash part and you can just focus on the before the hyphen thing. And how it is generated. Let's call it as a component ID. So even on this one, like in a style component, they call it as a component ID. So use they create a component ID by the display name or the parent. Actually, this parent component ID thing is, I think this part is deprecated. It's not used, but mostly it is derived from display name. And you can also pass your custom display name. So you can do this, though you don't have to do it all the time. Like most of the time you don't care, but sometime if you want more readability, you can do like style.app with config, and you can provide a display name here. And this would be taken as the highest priority. If not, then it will try from the app. And same thing for the div you can do. Like you can do something like this with display name my style div. So this will be used. And with config, with like a .attr with config is more of a chaining API for creating HOCs. So here, if you see, right, like I forgot to mention one thing, like this is mostly a HOC. If you talk about the style component, it's a HOC. Actually, not exactly HOC, but a forward ref HOC. But inside forward ref, you can do all the things you need do on a HOC, right? It's just a functional component, but you can have all the hooks inside the forward ref as well. So you can consider it as a HOC. If someone doesn't know what HOC is, a higher order component. Okay, and this component ID, because like how it is generated is they use the display name and the hyphen hash of style component version, so that like let's say in your component you have multiple version of a style component, maybe coming from library, like third-party library. They might not have added it as peer dependency or anything. So it will use the version number of the style component with the name, like display name, plus some counter. And let me show the actual reference. Style component generate ID. Yeah. So they create a counter like this, identifier, and with a display name, they keep the counter. Every time you create a new style component, it's not when you use it, right? Like it's more of like when you create a style component, that time the counter is incremented, and that is used for generating that hash. If you see generate component ID internally, like it create a hash of that string we have provided. It just like extract the alphabetic part of that. But yeah, like you can just consider it as a hash, some sort of hash. Now we were here, right? Yeah. And the generate component ID. Okay. Yeah. So this is the one reason like why without Babel plugin you can't use style component. It will scream because the increment counter would be different on server rendering, and when you are iterating on a client side, the counter might be different. So this is a place where there could be a divergence. And why it is required is just because this you can use the same component multiple times, right? I can write something like this, style component app 2, and the display name will always be app. But still, like if I generate the same component ID, then the component ID conflict will happen. So that's why, like if I've used it twice, the counter would be 2 here, counter would be 1 here. This is more evident on the like a native element style component, because like here you don't have a display name at all, and everything will be wrapped inside like a SC. So you don't want duplicate you don't want that duplicate identifier, like duplicate class names. That will,
So Sudhanshu, that ID thing being different, is it because that multiple users would be requesting on the same server? So the ID is common between all those people?
yes, yes. So your counter can increase, right? Like one person might be using a different page, one person might be using a different page. So the counter in a server could be different than the counter in a client.
So that typically we solve it with the context approach, right?
Yeah, we will see like why the context approach is not used here. Actually, let me answer. So here, the style component are more of a static part. And actually, let me answer that later. Why context API would not work. Till this part.
One more thing I wanted to ask, like the component name you mentioned that gets appended in the beginning of the class name, it only happens in development, right? In production, it's something minified.
Yes, I think I'm a little bit confused. Like in production, if they remove it,
Because like in development, it is for debugging, but in production, you wouldn't want
I think in
people
production also it's retained, at least on the code level. I have to check. I have to confirm this.
They remove the name, the component name.
Okay, they remove it.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. I'm confused there. But yeah, in development, that's definitely required, right? Like because you
in
need to know.
development, it's helpful.
And with Babel plugin, you also get the file name appended with that, so that you can know because multiple places the display name can be same, but the file name might be different. So they use file name as well to create proper display names. But that is done through Babel plugin. We'll see when we come to that part. So this part is clear, right? Like the static part of generation. Now the second part is, and this static ID would not change ever. Like once the component is created, it will remain same. So this is happening when you are calling style and app. So basically it's happening at this level. Whenever you're calling this tag template, so it's happening on component generation phase. So it will always be same. The second type of class names are dynamic class name, and these are the class names you see. So this is the static class name. For dynamic class name, they don't append component display name or anything. Because like you already have something there for static class name to find that particular component, so you don't need the same thing on the dynamic class names. For dynamic class names, what they do, like they generate that class name using the hash of component ID, which would be your static component ID, and the generated style string, basically after applying all the interpolations. So to take an example, let's say like this is our style component where we have some interpolation, some static part. And how this will work is basically like a in this particular example, right? The static parts will be like a position, relative, and all of this color, all the static string parts. And the interpolation, we have one prop dependent interpolation and one which is like a static value, not a static, constant value, which is there. So if you go on a code as well, you'll find something similar. It's a little bit a lot of code is there, so that's why I created a simpler example for this. Basically what happens, you have interpolations, and on every render it maps through interpolation. It checks like whether the interpolation is a function. If that is a function, pass the props, whatever you're getting onto it. So if you're calling this style app like this, you'll get the props, and it will be passed to that particular interpolation. And if it is a static value, like any other value, then like just return it. That's why it is advised not to provide some random function here. You can, but it will try to pass props on that. So you can pass any random function here, but it will treat it as the actual the interpolation, the function where it need to pass props. So, okay. So first it creates, like, evaluates all the interpolations, and once evaluated, it will combine the static and dynamic part. This is basically like you have a array, right? So after every static, it will put dynamic value, calculated dynamic value. So you can think it as a slots, because it is just breaking, splitting it, right? So at every dynamic part, your string, literal string, is splitted. So like after every static item, I will have some dynamic value. So you just combine that static and dynamic value, you get a generated style. Now from that generated styles, it will create a new class name, and this class name is basically your dynamic class name. So it will also use the component ID. It's not directly component ID. Let me show this. Use injected styles, generate inject styles. Yeah. So there is this is something base has. And base has, if you see, it's nothing but component ID with some seed, like the hash of some seed with the component ID. Seed is basically the hash of style component version. So, but yeah, like it's a function of, if you think, it's a function of component ID and generated style string. And once it has all the class name, one will be like the component ID. So it will attach that, it will attach the class name, this dynamic class name, and it will also attach all the remaining class names which you are passing. So for this example, we are passing some class names here as well. So it will attach that as well. So you can see this, right? Like one is a static prop, static class name, dynamic class name, and then all the remaining class names which you have provided. This part is clear, right? Like how the class names are generated.
I have a question. Why? Sorry if it is already addressed. Why does it require to create two classes, like static and dynamic?
It hasn't been addressed yet.
Okay.
I'll be covering it on next parts, like why the dynamic, why the static. So dynamic, you definitely know like why it need to generate dynamic, because like you have some interpolation and prop can change. You have to update it, right? And one approach is to delete the previous class name and attach a new class name, but that would require like let's say, so for the properties where your value is updating very frequently, like for the value where it's indefinite, basically like you don't know what all value can come here. For this example, we don't know what height can come here. So in such cases, we shouldn't be providing it on interpolation, like the height we have provided here. And this, whenever you resize, it will create a new class names. But for the properties like theme dark versus not theme dark, sorry, variant dark versus light. So there will be only two variant of it, right? In such type of cases, let's say you are completely removing the light version and apply dark version. If you are switching it back, actually you don't switch a lot between light and thin, but you can consider color base. You have a set of colors and you are switching between colors. If you switch back to the first color, then again the same calculation need to happen, and again you will have to apply things again, right? You will have to attach a new style rule, and browser kind of caches the parsing of your class names. So it will not be like a parsing it again and again. So, but if you are removing and adding it again, so it has to parse it again and again. So this is a trade-off of like keeping those stale class names for the sake of not making browser to work again on recalculating styles. And even like when you remove class name, browser may think like it is a time to see whether that class removal has affected my like style page styles, and it can trigger it will not trigger a relayout repaint, but first it will check, right, like whether it has to apply relayout and repaint. So if you are not removing it, that whole step can be escaped. But if you are removing, like that whole step has to be done again. So if it is for only few variant, if it is only for known variants, that I will have only 5 type of values in this, then there is no performance bottleneck. But for the example which I gave here, the height thing, this is a performance bottleneck. So for this, there is a, like, instead of providing height here, there are 2 approaches. Either you can provide directly inline styles. I know like some people might scream like, what the hell you're telling, but this is completely fine. If it is a very dynamic property, you can just say height, and not pass it on a style component. So your style component remains static most of the time. It's just that your this like a you're directly changing the style attribute. There is another good pattern is with the CSS variable. There was one blog.
Yeah, it's Josh. Josh is
style component. Josh. Yeah. This is a great pattern. Yep, this one. So instead of for this highly dynamic property, right, you can use CSS variable. So your style component looks static, and it will not change. It will not update because these variables are coming from style attributes, and you pass your style attributes you update your dynamic values through CSS variables. So this is another pattern you can use in such cases.
By the way, Sudhanshu, like, I don't know if we should discuss this here, but it's like if we are going to use CSS variables, then kind of the CSS in JS, that was its core value proposition, right? That you can have totally dynamic styles. But if we are going to use CSS variables, then
so here also it's a dynamic styling, but for the cases, I would not follow this case all the places, though. Like there is another use case which Josh has mentioned for giving this kind of like using this kind of pattern. I would highly recommend to read this blog. So this is basically like if you want to update the same thing from the parent thing, how you would make it more maintainable. So probably you should read. But for the properties like which have only 4 or 5 or maybe like a defined variant, you don't need to do this. It's fine if you directly pass it as a props. Okay. And the static, like why, so dynamic class names, we got to know like why it is required, because your styles can change. So dynamic class names also should change. Let's see why, or before that, let's see like how the processing happens. So basically at this stage, right, where you have generated the style, interpolated, like you have calculated everything and you've generated a style string. What happens in this particular line after generating the class names, it will pass this thing to stylist. So style component internally use stylist library. This is also built by the same maintainers. It's a lightweight preprocessor of CSS. That's why you can write some syntax like SCSS or less syntax. It's a little bit different than SCSS less. Actually, in some cases, it's more powerful than SCSS. Basically, the style component had that reverse selector type of thing, which SCSS can't have. But yeah, so internally it uses style component and stylist, and it will be passing. So something would be like this. Or let me show the actual code now. Use injected style. So here it will generate an injected style. Generate an injected style. So first it will check like whether the same for that class name, for that component ID, and it's already present or not. If it is not present, then create new set of rules with the static part, like the whole generated part, with this as a your class name. So if you see this example here, and will be replaced by whatever class name you're generating, dynamic class name you are generating. So all the ends, and it's not like all the ends will be replaced with dynamic. If you are using something like this, and so it's a context based as well. So in this case, inside this, and will be pointing to the class name which you are getting from top, which you have generated, dynamic class name which you have generated, and then some element is space div. So it depends on the context as well. But for simplicity, you can just think of the and would be replaced by class names. And they also, like, let's say if you don't have any dynamic part on your styles, right? If you have something like this, very simple, it will mark them as a static. Let me show that as well. Is static. Yeah. So they mark this thing as a static, and if it is a static, they don't have to process things. They don't have to calculate the interpolation values, right? So they can escape a bunch of thing they have to do. Even the dynamic styles will be in there will be no dynamic styles, so your class name will never change. And if it is a static, they can just append it once, and they don't have to append it twice. So they can just avoid a lot of processing if it is a static template literal. Is this the dynamic class name part clear, right? Any question so far?
Yes, just like one small question, like if like the parent components re-renders, then it does the dynamic calculation like every time for calculating the dynamic class name.
It will do, because it doesn't know the props are changed. I think they have done some optimizations there, but I couldn't find any memo or something on the props at least.
So I mean, if there's like a complex, like slightly complex, like computation in, maybe I'm doing like color, maybe I'm doing some computation in calculating colors from props. So like it would not be a good idea for performance wise.
Just do this. Wrap your style component in react.memo. So before reaching to React, like a style component, it will check the props.
Yes.
So
but okay, But since styled also makes a HOC, can't it wrap the memo thing itself?
So they will be making an assumption which may not hold true for most of the time.
Okay,
they
so
don't,
it's like, okay,
yeah. And React.memo is not always good, right? It's a,
yeah,
let's say if you're passing some children component on that, it will always update. Though, like even because children component, children always updates, children property always updates, your memo will always fail, and you will always be paying extra cost of doing checks. So they
Yeah.
don't know it beforehand. And wherever you feel there is a performance problem, you can always wrap it. You can wrap your style component. It's a normal component only, right? So you can wrap it.
By the way, Sudhanshu, that insert rules thing you will cover later.
Insert rule, which one?
Basically, like you covered how they generate that class name, but actually how it ends up in the browser.
Actually, inserting on browser, I haven't noted it here, but let me tell that as well. So you will see something like styled, and you will see like a data style equal to active. This basically is a style component which will be owned by a specific version, and all the generated styles, they will be putting it in this particular styled element. So actually I'll be covering. So when I come to this server-side rendering, right? So in a server-side rendering, it's a little bit different approach. In client, it is a different. Let me actually show that as well.
I was also reading about that thing that earlier I think they used to do styles.append or something like a DOM
No,
thing.
no, it's
And
not.
then they started using the insert rules
Yes.
kind of thing.
Yes.
But browser had some issues with it. Like DevTools had some issues. So now like DevTools also changed some things to show the styles.
Yeah. So this is they pass style set through a context, and for client it will be styled tag. For your server-side rendering, this would be like a normal object where you're just appending things. So this is where you can change it, and this comes from top. So this will be one element where they are adding everything. But they do insert thing, and also they, from the style set, they check whether it's already present, if that particular class name is already present or not. Yeah, something like this. So has name for ID, and this thing, I think they also create map somewhere. I haven't gone on that part, but they also create a map of what all class names they have generated. No, for caching. Somewhere they, yeah, I think this is the cache. So they create a cache attached to a particular style set, and and in that cache they check whether it's added or not. Also, like it points, that particular style set would be pointing to a specific style tag which they will be appending. For server side component, it would be more of like it would more be like appending it on an array, and then just appending on an array, or like appending over a string and just extracting it out. But let me not go around code like this, otherwise it will be more confusion. But yeah, so the idea for attaching it is that from the top level, they pass one style set object. In that style set object, it can be controlled, like in a server, it would be just appending it on some temporary reference. And in client, they will be inserting that rule into an actual DOM element. And all the generation happens within your style component. It's just that like once it is once it has generated, it will be passing the generated string. So the formatted rule, CSS formatted rule. So they will be passing this, the output of a stylist to your style set module, which will take care of appending it. Okay. Now let's see about how the prop thing work, right? Like one thing we have seen, because it's a forward ref, you're getting props, and while applying the interpolations, while calculating the interpolation values, if it is a function, they pass props to that. You can also pass a shoot forward prop method. You can do something like this. Right here. Styled with config. So, and this is basically like a filter approach. So you get the props and prop, and you say whether you should forward it to element or not. By default, if you are passing any props, so if I'm saying like this color red will be attached to the actual div element as well. So let's say if it is a style.div, what will happen, that I would see this color attribute there as well. Let me show that. So here we had this one, right? Yeah. So it is a heading. It is adding the property, like it is passing prop to the actual DOM element as well. That's why you can pass that filter function. And whenever you pass that, you can filter out the props you don't want to do. You don't want to forward to your underlying element. You can also make a prop a transient prop by saying like a dollar. So if I do it like this, now that thing will not be added here. So and definitely like here also you have to use the transient prop only. In your parent component also you have to do dollar height, but that's the idea. Or not, let me check. Transient prop. Transient props. Yeah, in style component also you have to do dollar thing. So and all of this thing will be merged. So you can think it like this. So in the forward ref, you will be getting all the props. And here you get the option, right? Like with config, you can provide an option. So with it would be just like updated props would be should forward props, and it will not pass the whole prop, it will pass every key. But there will be some wrapper function which will be passing every key to the should forward props. So actually let's see how it looks like. In a style component, everything is inside this. So you have a style component inside model. Should forward props. So basically you're passing a filter function. Okay, sorry, it will pass all the props I've never used it. Like I've never used this filtering logic. One thing more it does is basically like in component you can use it like this, right? You can say const super style component, another style component. So style component might have some filtering logic, and this super style component might also have the filtering logic. So it tries to take your props through all the middleware. You can think it as a middleware, and it will filter on every component level. So that's what happening here. They're just wrapping it. So the previous past props with the parent past prop, they're just calling both of that. So for like prop forwarding is simple, like whatever you're passing, it will go unless you filter it or you provide a transient prop. And you can also provide attributes. So you can do something like this dot attr. Not going to use attribute, but you can do style.input dot attributes, and internally it will return another like it's just a chained method. So whatever style.input returns, it will return the same thing. It will just attach these attributes to your like new tagged template. So whatever thing you're passing here in the attributes, whatever thing you are returning here, it will be attached to your props object. So this is previously we saw like a filtering props. It is more of like adding extra props. If you want to add any extra prop, you can provide dot attributes. And if you see that style component components with config with attributes. So like this is a template function. In the template function only they attach this chained method dot attrs, and internally you will see like they will call the same constructor with options method, which is this one, constructor with options. So internally they are calling the same thing. It will just attach the attributes whatever you are getting, and definitely filtering out any Boolean thing. But yeah, like it will attach this on the options they provide. Let's not go more on that. Am I confusing any people? Let me know if I should jump that fast on code, because jumping on code might look a little bit confusing. Any questions so far on the props? Okay. So let's see how themes are supported. So basically in themes, right, it's the same. And in theme, you can think of more as a context. So you have a context provider. And when you say so whatever you provide from this theme, what it would do is like if you have any style component inside, right, it will attach the passed theme as a theme property in your existing props. And how it will basically do is basically inside forward graph, it's using a context with the theme provider, and whatever you get, it will just updating. So also like in props, if you are passing custom thing here, like a theme in the box component, then it will override whatever the theme provider is passing. So basically it's not a very good idea. If you are using the theme provider, you shouldn't be using manual theme property. Okay, now let's see where that static style ID is used. So, okay, I think I have. Okay, so the first thing is same like basically the stylist is doing all the pre-processing, so you don't have to think a lot about it, like how the pre-processing is happening. And to be honest, like I haven't seen like how the pre-processing happenings there. But yeah, like the basic thing is it replaces the and with the class name you have generated, and that's why like you can even do something like this, some element and what will happen here. So some element should be the parent component of your styled component. So you can have div some something like this. So even style components support that just by replacing it, because like the whole generated style will be appended to a style tag. So you can just pass and after a class name, and this will be added on a style tag, and this can work. And you can also do something like this for like a nested component. In a style component, you can pass another style component, where like here the children is another style component. And this is where your static class name is used. So because the dynamic class name can change, right? And you don't know like what dynamic class name will be there for the children component. You don't have any idea, like it might have changed the prop, so the whole class name is stale and it's no longer used by the children, but the static component ID will never change. So in this line, what it would do internally is just replace it with your styled component dot component ID. So whenever it sees a style component, it will look for component ID on that prop, static property on that prop, and it will just replace your string with that. So that's why they have to attach, even if we see here, so they have to attach the static class name as well, because in a parent, actually we have written example for that, right? So here, so I have done style button, and in style button, the static prop is basically SCHWDYE. Now, if I see that here I'm getting a class name. This class name is a dynamic class name for app, which is this, and followed by the static component ID of the button. So that's how it handles the nesting of component. Anyone saying anything?
Does it mean the static IDs gets reused?
Yes, static IDs get reused.
Okay, this clarifies.
And this will also be used on server-side rendering. We'll come to that. But yeah, like for nesting, so one place where it is used is the component nesting, and the other place where it would be used is the server-side rendering. So let's come to that part. Now, there is one thing, this is very small, we can cover this as well. So create global style, you must have used, right? Like, and this is an anti pattern. They have provided one escape hatch, but ideally you should avoid the global style. So create global style. So in this, what happened, like whenever you create a global style, all of the content of it. So here it will not apply any dynamic dynamic class name generation. It will just append all the content to your style tag. So it will be added as it is. And every time it adds, it will check like whether the class name is already present. So if we see the implementation, right, it would be similar. Like we evaluate interpolation, we generate the style string, and then inside like effect, we see like if the only when the style string change, then append that to style tag. And here there is no static or dynamic class name generation for your create global style. And that's why this could be a problem, like it inherits the problem of writing like a normal CSS. If something is a global style, you don't know where it is used. Actually, this we have already covered, that attribute thing is added as a props. Let's see how server-side rendering works. So in a server-side rendering, before that, let's see. Let's open. Okay, so when you use Babel plugin, right, a Babel plugin style component, what it does, so you're writing just your style component, and now this will transpile and it will add, it will add the component ID in the compile time only. So now the component ID would, you don't have to generate the component ID on the runtime. If you're using this plugin, the component ID will be generated on the compile time only. And that's how it will maintain the ID of server and client. It will keep it consistent. This is clear, right? And this is again a static ID because it is generated on a compile time. It will not change on a server or nor on client, so it will not report that something has changed. So that is one, and then it uses a context to push all the generated style. So the thing I was explaining there, right? Like let's say server side rendering. In server-side rendering, you do something like this, like you do style.collect styles, and what it essentially does is basically like it wraps your application with a custom provider, and that provider will be passing a style sheet object, and that style sheet object will be used by your this method. Style component generate. So it needs a style sheet object, right? So this style sheet object will be coming from that provider. The work of that style sheet object is just to like collect all the style sheet generated. Similar way, like instead of adding it on a DOM, it is adding it on like one store. And when you do seed.get style tags, so it will create a style tag string for you from all those, and it will keep style set rules inside that. You can pass that style tags, and it will also give you style tag element itself, so that like when you are hydrating on the client side, that time it can know like which style set element they should look into. So during hydration, they will probably check again, right, whether that class name is already added or not, and they add the same attributes which you saw here. It would be adding all of these attributes: data style, active, data style version, and it will try to find those class names and rules inside that particular style object. So it's very simple on the server rendering as well. And yeah, the component ID is the key of making the server side rendering work, the static component ID. And Babel plugin not just like it's not only helpful for server side rendering, but it takes care of a couple of more things, like it will minify your style sheet, or it will minify all of these things. Minify in the sense like remove spaces, remove like a /n. And why this is required? Like, why do you need to minify by a Babel plugin? Because it is a template literal, right? And any minifier wouldn't minify the template literals, because the that's a primitive value, and you shouldn't modify the primitive values. So that's why minifier can't do that, and Babel plugin does the minification for you. It also create a different version of a let's see, tooling. So that debugging part is that, like, it will attach your file name as well. So you like, if there is duplicate display name, the file name would uniquely identify it. Just give me a minute. Sorry. Yeah. So
There's one more thing I think the Babel plugin does is it also gives the ability to add a CSS prop to any component, and it converts it into a style component.
yes. So that's a more of a like this. You can write something like this. Div and then CSS equal to
I
string.
think you can just pass it a string.
Yeah, the string, and this will look for this pattern CSS equal to something. You can't do something like this, like a you can't have it as a prop on CSS equal to, and then pass this thing. You can't
And
do.
it works on like any component, right? It doesn't need to be a DOM element, right?
It works on any component. So it just look this pattern, and it will convert. You can see how.
Yeah, the CSS prop, I think they added it with V4.
Or by the
I
way,
think you
like,
can search for CSS space prop, then it would show up maybe.
CSS prop.
CSS prop V4.
So you can do something like this, and internally it will be converted to actual style component. It's so the like, it's not like it will be using it will be directly adding some class names here. It will be internally converting it into style.
It happens on compile time, right? This thing.
It happens on compile time, but it will be converting, like it's similar. You can write it like this, or you can write it like this. It's the same. So there are a bunch of optimizations which happens, like the file name thing, and then the minification, and then what else? Actually, it's mentioned here. You can.
Sudhanshu,
So
one thing. So, like you said that the CSS prop gets converted into that style button syntax.
Mhm.
So, if that is the case, then the example you showed where the CSS string was in separate variable, that should also work then. Like the string part, because
Because
div
it's,
CSS will just convert into
oh,
style
sorry,
to div.
sorry, not this. I was saying like a prop. It will not understand it. So that will work because it can move the object, but this would not work.
This makes sense. Yeah.
This would not work. So you can't spread the props here. Now, the compiler would not understand, like they have to extract CSS thing from here.
Yeah, but and the other pattern, because that is like anytime I thought about style component, I thought, okay, at least this CSS prop kind of thing is there. I can extract the string into a variable. So if that was a limitation, then it would have been a problem for me.
Yeah, this would work because in Babel, right, you can get the scope, and let's say if you are using some variable here, CSS variable, it can look for the scope on that function.
It doesn't even have to, right? Like it can just say that div CSS converted into style.div.
Because it is moving it out, right? Like it will not create that style component within that function. If it creates within the function, what will happen, like every time it will create a new function reference, and your reconciliation will break. So it has to move it.
So, but if the CSS the string is defined in that level, then it has to move that out also.
Yes.
Oh, that becomes like a complicated ASP.
And I have to check, like we can actually check right now, right? So they have fixtures. How do they do it? CSS with a pure CSS declared.
The CSS declared after component might
Yeah,
have.
this is there, right? Transpile CSS prop at requires. So if you write something like this will be converted to something like this. So style div is actually moved out. So yeah, they do move it out of a function. And I'm just thinking, what will happen if I'm passing this CSS variable as a prop?
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I also thought, like,
because
how it deals with dynamic values.
Yeah, and it's common to have like box component kind of things, right? Where you pass prop and then you would expect it to pass into the CSS thing.
I doubt like it would work. They might have generalized.
I think it only works with static.
Yes, static value. I don't think it will even work with thing like CSS where the previous pattern.
Okay.
I'll need to check. I haven't checked it yet.
Otherwise, yeah, it has to know, okay, CSS variable. I have to move CSS variable outside also when I move the component.
If this variable is defined within the function, you can move it because you have the scope information. But if that CSS variable is coming through some other function, if it is an input value, like if it is a static variable definition, then you can move it. But if it is dependent on some variable,
prop or something,
yeah, like that object is constructed from some static, but
it cannot know on compile time like what to do.
Yes. Only it can do is like a convert and make everything as a prop dependency. So I'm assuming, or actually they can.
CSS in JS library coming.
There is one way where they can do that as well. So this will be passed as the whole string will be passed as a props. What about that? Like anyway, this is one.
But I in the docs I saw that they allowed that props.theme. That thing template the template little tagging thing. So how would that work?
Props.theme is a different pattern itself, right? Props.theme is basically they are using a context and they are they are like modifying the props. So in the forward ref, you get the theme and you modify the actual props. Yeah, I think that's all. We can like let's open up for questions.